The Cuban Missile Crisis was a pivotal moment in the Cold War, a tense standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union that brought the world to the brink of nuclear war in October 1962. The crisis was triggered by the discovery of Soviet ballistic missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles off the coast of Florida, capable of striking major cities in the United States. The roots of the crisis can be traced back to the Cuban Revolution of 1959, when Fidel Castro came to power and established a communist regime in Cuba. This development was deeply unsettling to the United States, which viewed Cuba as a strategic threat in its own backyard. In response, the U.S. government imposed a trade embargo on Cuba and supported various attempts to overthrow Castro's government, including the ill-fated Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961. In the midst of this tense relationship, the Soviet Union saw an opportunity to gain a strategic advantage over the United States by deploying nuclear missiles in Cuba. In the spring of 1962, Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev secretly began sending missiles and military personnel to the island, with the goal of deterring any future U.S. invasion of Cuba and balancing the nuclear capabilities of the two superpowers. Yet the presence of Soviet missiles in Cuba was discovered by U.S. intelligence in October 1962, setting off a frantic series of events that brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. President John F. Kennedy and his advisors were faced with a difficult dilemma: how to respond to this provocative act without escalating the situation into all-out conflict. Yet Kennedy chose to implement a naval blockade or quarantine around Cuba to prevent further shipments of military equipment and demand the removal of the missiles already in place. He also engaged in back-channel communications with Khrushchev to explore possible diplomatic solutions to the crisis. For 13 tense days, the world watched as the two superpowers engaged in a high-stakes game of brinkmanship. Both sides issued ultimatums and threats, while military forces around the world were placed on high alert. At one point, a US U-2 spy plane was shot down over Cuba, raising fears of a direct military confrontation. In the end, a peaceful resolution to the crisis was reached through a combination of diplomatic negotiations and back-channel communications. Khrushchev agreed to remove the missiles from Cuba in exchange for a U.S. pledge not to invade the island and a secret agreement to remove U.S. missiles from Turkey. The Cuban Missile Crisis had a lasting impact on the Cold War and international relations. It highlighted the dangers of nuclear brinkmanship and the need for improved communication and crisis management between the superpowers. The crisis also led to a period of détente or relaxation of tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union, as both sides sought to avoid a repeat of the near catastrophe of October 1962.